What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest, Kivanchi, and we have a very special guest here with us on the podcast today. She is a sexologist. She's a Somatica certified sex and relationship coach, the Kink Consultant, guys, podcast host, and former New York City dominatrix. We have Amanda Dames. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I gotta tell you, I already love your energy, so I am
Oh,
ready to
thank you
get
so much.
into it. And where are you based? Where do you live?
So right now I'm in Delaware,
Oh,
in
okay.
the Delaware, Philadelphia area.
Are you
Yes.
from the East Coast?
I'm actually from Chicago.
Oh, okay, because you definitely have like a city energy about you. That's why I was wondering. So, like, it's probably the Chicago energy.
It,
Because when you said Delaware, I was like, maybe Delaware. I don't know.
it's interesting out here. Philadelphia is like right here, so they just get all the residual New York,
Yeah.
Philly energy, so it's all good. But I'm so excited about this conversation. So like we were just talking about, um, just from even when I can remember, just the idea and the topics of like BDSM, kink, dominatrix submission, especially when you're talking with your girlfriends in school, there was
Yeah.
such a specific idea about what it looked like in, Hollywood and what it looks like in a relationship, from how you dress to even how you act in that type of dynamic, right? And so with movies like 50 Shades of Grey, Baby Girl, and of course, I Want
Yes.
Your Sex, which is coming out the end of this year. Um, just knowing that you have such a connection and a passion about getting rid of some of those misconceptions and reframing people's mindset around what that looks like with trust and communication, commitment, and boundaries. It's so exciting. So, for your journey, really quickly, how did you even get interested in this?
Okay, I'm gonna try and make it quick,
Okay.
but it starts when I was 5 years old and I'm 37 now, so a
Oh,
22
I'm
year journey
37
is a lot.
too.
Oh, I thought you were younger than me. I love that. Okay. Awesome. I always say I was born kinky because I was always interested in I have something called a fetish, and there's a slight difference between a kink and a fetish. A kink is a fun, let's explore. A fetish is I need to be thinking about this in order to achieve arousal. So I have a punishment fetish, but a 5-year-old doesn't know what that is. Like, I wasn't sexual as a 5-year-old. I just knew I was obsessed with spanking. And if one of my friends were going to get spanked, or, you hear like, oh, you hear your friends are threatened with a spanking all the time. If it happened, I'd want all the details. And I knew that wasn't normal. So I
Hmm.
felt I was weird. So I tried to act normal. And games, I used to play house and someone always got in trouble and I'd spank them. And then when I was 13, I realized, oh, I was watching a TV show. It was like a documentary style show where this couple went to see a dominatrix because they were both submissive and they wanted
Okay.
to experience domination from a dominatrix. And it just all clicked with me. I was like, okay, what I'm interested in is sexual. When I'm 18, I'll go to a dominatrix and then I'll have my needs met. And it never occurred to me that you can have this in a relationship because, just like you were saying, at that school age, you don't even know how to talk about anything other than just boys or girls as a sexual being, but not really understanding all
Hmm.
what sexuality and intimacy is. You don't understand the spectrum. So once more, I was like, okay, I understand myself more, but I feel like a freak. Flash forward like 11 years, I'm living in New York City and I become the dominatrix and I'm submissive normally, but I'm like, I need and want extra spending money. Let me go get this job. So I get on Craigslist. Fine. I wasn't expecting to be a dominatrix. I wanted a second job, and this came up, and I was like, oh, this seems fun. So I started to dom people in the evenings after my like day job. I would go to a dungeon and work there. And the clients would come and they would choose what girl they wanted to work with. So it for me was I call it my college education in
Hmm.
kink because I knew what I was interested in, but I was just thrown everything. People would come in and ask for wild things like extreme impact play. They would want to be whipped and bleeding to like that extreme to like they just
Hmm.
wanted to be made fun of and humiliated in that type of stereotype dom
Yeah.
situation. You they wanted to I mean, on very sad ends, they wanted you to be a caretaker babysitter type, and you'd hear stories of how they lost their virginity, and the reason I'm using my quotes, to their babysitter. But when you're a
Mhm.
9-year-old boy and your babysitter's 16, you were assaulted. It's just not called that. So the range was huge. Not, I want to address quickly, not all kink comes from trauma. It's not
Mhm.
all about beating people black and blue. Sometimes people just wanted to, there was cross dressing. A lot of men just
Mhm.
wanted to dress like women, and they didn't all want to be humiliated. They wanted to play dress up. They wanted me to put them in different jewelry and clothes and tell them how good they looked. So there was a range. And I got to explore all of it, things that I was never personally interested in, but I got to explore and learn about. And that was a really fun time in my life that I appreciated, and I knew, thank God I did this. I'd always regret it if I didn't. However, it's time to get back to serious corporate America, and Amanda needs to climb the corporate ladder. So I moved away from the dungeon. I was like, I can no longer work here. I have a serious job now. And I did have a serious job the whole time, but I was like, I need to focus on it and grow. And it did help me to grow because I was able to focus more on my career. But
Mhm.
I could never stay in a job for a long time. I kept job hopping. I kept missing the work as a dom and telling myself, you can't do that. That's not a realistic career. And then I
Mhm.
discovered sex and relationship coaching. And I realized there are enough clients who need help that I can specialize in my passion, which is kink and BDSM. And I
Mhm.
started to coach. I created a TikTok and Instagram account, called myself the Kink Consultant, and really leaned in. And, after getting some popularity on social media, the media started to reach out and ask my advice and my thoughts on different kinks. Or like when Baby Girl came out, they were like, well, what do you think of this? And then I realized I'm kind of just like a general kink expert now, although I don't call myself a kink expert?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
I'm actually
that's the 22-year like catch up for you.
No, I'm actually glad that you talked about even being at a young age because I have like a similar like age journey and interest in it. And I found myself in school, like all my friends literally used to call me like the sexologist in high school.
Yeah.
And because one of the big things that I focused on that I don't even think I realized I was focusing on was knowing yourself, knowing your body, knowing your boundaries, and knowing when to say no, what's comfortable, when to say yes, and being sure about those things. And I would want to like talk to my friends about it when they were talking about boys, and I would literally set up like a chalkboard and be like, all right, what are we feeling? And one of my friends was like, you should teach this. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, teach it. Like, I don't know, like just be with yourself. But as I got older and I'm building a relationship with sex with other people, it was like, wow, we don't know a lot of things. So for you, when did it go from fulfilling a need for yourself to then being like, I want to actually educate other people on the things that I've learned?
What a good question. I feel like I am on a mission to destigmatize kink because all I want to do is protect the next generation from feeling shame or embarrassment about what they want. And ever so often I get this comment like, yeah, kink is so normal and natural now, like no one cares, your job isn't necessary. And I take a second and I think, oh, is that true? Am I wasting my time? And then I hear some other judgment from someone, or I just moved to Kansas City, Missouri, and I moved from Vegas. The reception to my job here is quite different than the reception I got in Vegas. And I realized, no, it's still not normalized. And
Mm-hmm.
it was this internal burning desire to make kink more accepted and to help people understand kink shouldn't be a bad word. We accept sex. We're very sex positive, or we're moving in the direction of being more sex positive as a society. But kink has been left behind. And I think it is still thought of as that taboo thing, even though if you Google sex, there are so many kink and BDS elements like eye masks or handcuffs. We associate all of these things with sex, but we're scared to call it kink. And just knowing that we need to integrate kink more into our sex lives and understand that it is perfectly sex positive, there's nothing wrong with kink, drove me to be like, let me educate more people and help people understand kink is not the heavily tattooed, heavily pierced, green haired person that everyone imagines.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people are my friends, by the way. But kink can also probably be enjoyed by your child's kindergarten teacher. And they probably are
Mm-hmm.
having fantasies of and we need to not villainize them, you
Yeah.
know? So that really pushes me to teach people. But like, yes, you literally could do my job. And I know that because all of the girls in high school who knew to talk about sex and what, yeah, that's who we became sexperts.
It's just it's just such an interesting thing, and it's such an interesting topic too, because you would think it's the body, it's everywhere. You know, we're seeing it in our favorite movies, and we love all of these romantic love scenes and all of these other things. And then when you look at like the contrast of it, where again Hollywood or TV is trying to portray a specific subset of what it looks like, it's like all of the things that make a relationship healthy are thrown out of the window, and it must be this rigid thing. So, as you started going into it just from your own discovery into the professional aspect, what were some things that surprised you that you were like, no, I must teach other people this thing to connect the relationship world with the BDSM kink world?
The first thing that stands out, and I think in the spirit of the podcast and just talking about how it's portrayed in the media and movies, is what I noticed was there was some weird perception that a dominant person, the person playing that top role, should just automatically know everything and they're not also learning, right? So in the early 2000s, there was a movie called Secretary with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal. They're both amazing. And in it, people look at it and they're like, oh, this was so toxic. This was so dangerous. Red flag, red flag. He didn't know what he was doing. And I was wondering, why are we giving her a pass for not knowing, but he needs to know everything? And that's very rooted in, honestly, a patriarchal idea that men are leaders and know everything and they shouldn't play with anyone until they're perfect. But who are they supposed to learn on? Like then, the this is what relationship is. It's learning each other. It's figuring it out together. And my thing that I'm seeing is everyone's blaming the man. Even and then let's flash forward to the movie Baby Girl with Nicole
I'm
Kidman. Okay, right? Have
so
you
glad
seen it?
it was. I literally told my wife, I said, why are we assuming he knows what he's doing? And why are we not asking the question?
Yes, thank you. And people were blaming so before I used to think, okay, it really challenged what I thought society was thinking because in my mind I was like, okay, movie Secretary, wonderful movie. It was kind of like a cult, it was a low budget indie film.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, he is older, he is a lawyer, this is her first job, she's very innocent and young. So I understand maybe people are thinking, oh, it's an older man. He should know he should be treating her fairly. He's taking advantage. Then let's swap it up with Baby Girl. We have a young intern. He's early 20s. She must be mid 50s and a CEO. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still his fault. And listen, I'm all about blaming men sometimes, but I love men, right? And I want to give grace to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It shocked me when people were angry at this boy, this 22-year-old
Yeah.
old boy acting like he was the problem. And I'm not saying he wasn't, but so was she. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
point. Relationships are messy. It requires communication. No one knows how to do it perfectly from the get-go. But for some reason, we expect the male role, as long as they're dominant, that they're just supposed to know. And it takes the relationship, it takes the empathy, it takes the connection out of the entire thing with BDSM.
Mm-hmm.
50 Shades of Grey is one I don't normally talk about because I feel like as fantastical as Baby Girl was, because she's this amazing CEO and has a beautiful apartment and a beautiful husband and the perfect life, I feel that any movie about a billionaire doesn't count because people are so enamored with money, I think especially
Mm-hmm.
Americans, that it changes the dynamic of the entire film. It's not just that he's a dom and he wants to do these sexy things. It's also that he could solve all of her
Yeah.
problems with a snap of his finger. He bought her a publishing company and made her gave her this company. It was a dream life outside of BDSM, and that's why I
Mm-hmm.
think it makes it harder to analyze that movie because it it's so fan fictiony and it's such a almost satirical look at BDSM. Whereas when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about Secretary and Baby Girl, we're actually talking about a more realistic view of what's happening. You know?
Yes, and it's so I read 50 Shades of Grey and I went to see the movie, and I did leave the movie because I felt like the translation the things that were fascinating and that I felt Hollywood could take a new approach to have this conversation, it was translated into something where it's like, okay, why are we still fascinated, but we refuse to address the things that make this type of relationship a really safe relationship? So why do you think Hollywood and people are so fascinated and drawn to the movie theaters to see these things, even though it leaves people who are rooted in this less than satisfied with the results?
Oh, I think because the reality of it is so boring. That's the truth. Kink relationships, while they are exciting and hot and heavy from the outside, 90% of what's going on is in your head. And it's like, of course, you're not actually giving your power to somebody else.
Mhm.
You are suspending disbelief. You are in a role play, and that's a lot in your head, and you're not doing it performatively. Hollywood needs it to be performative. They need it to look beautiful, they need it to be extreme, and they need the stakes to be high. One of my favorite ways to describe it is a lot of people will say, "Oh, movies like 50 Shades of Grey, they give people a bad idea of what a relationship should be. It's a red flag. What if people want to try this? It could be dangerous." A lot of people claimed 50 Shades of Grey was dangerous and it didn't
Mhm.
portray kink properly. But then I was like, why are we not yelling at the Fast and the Furious and blaming every car accident on the Fast and the Furious? People are going to be dumb. People are going to do silly things that they know deep down they shouldn't do, or they know they should do it safely. But like, imagine the Fast and the Furious with actual drivers who are former convicts or something like that. I'm literally imagining like my crazy neighbors who drive motorcycles really late at night. I'm like, no one's expecting them to actually be amazing drivers. If the Fast and the Furious happened in real life, they would be like not these sexy, appealing people. They would be hooligans on the road that you didn't want to come across and would be annoyed if they were blocking your street to have their stupid little race. I love those movies, though. I'm obsessed with how stupid and fantastical they are. But my point is,
Absolutely.
we hold sex in movies to a different standard than any other part of what movies are portrayed as. For example, I grew up in Ireland. Our outside of the United States, can you imagine what we think American high school is like if we only see One Tree Hill and Orange? What was all of
Pretty
those
Little
types of?
Liars,
Yes.
90210.
What was that what your high school life was like exactly? Or was that
Absolutely not.
that's how I describe kink because I'm like, it needs to look interesting and pretty, and everyone's locker needs to be a full size, and periods need to be spaced out so you have this meet cute moment in the hall with your boyfriend or the guy you're crushing on in the middle of high school. And I'm guessing that's not totally what it was like. Maybe it's a little bit like reality, and that's what like
Mhm.
BDSM is like. And I think movies need to add that tension because the visual tension doesn't exist in real life in the same way. It's much more
Mhm.
subtle.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think of examples where I've seen real BDSM just out and about in the streets. And one time, the truth is, if you were to see what happens in movies in real life, you'd have to question if it was abuse because it's extreme. So
Yeah.
the real parts of kink are boring. There's actually a really good Family Guy clip of them, what real BDSM is like, where Lois is putting on all of her gear she's basically dressing like a real
Mhm.
dominatrix. And while she's dressing, and then I think the husband's name is Peter, maybe,
Peter.
he's putting on a gimp mask and stuff like that. And all
Mhm.
the while they're dressing up like this and getting ready, they're talking about their children's behavioral issues in their report
Yeah.
card or something, right?
And then she turned off
That's
the
the
lights
reality.
and did some.
Yes, that's the reality of what it's like, and it's just not as interesting as movies. I mean, listen, I don't know a single kinkster, though, who doesn't wish they had a red room like 50 Shades of Grey. That's
Yeah.
the dream.
Yeah.
So, are you and your wife, do you have kink in you? Is that why you watched Baby Girl, or are you guys pretty
Um,
non-kinky?
without getting too into the weeds, I want to respect her privacy. We
Yes.
are very I mean, conversations about sex, kink, things that we like, things like that. It's not off the table. And we enjoy. She actually enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey, but she watched Baby Girl before I did, and she knew what I would have a problem with. So she was like, watch it, watch it, watch it. And literally the first thing out of my mouth is when they had the conversation. And then it was just, she wanted to give up so much power so fast. And he's, like you said, he's young, they're dynamic. He wants to get the power, but he doesn't know what to do with it. And it turned into such a horrific, like, first type of situation. And I was like, nobody's communicating at all, especially when the rest of the movie shows you the more boring parts, the root cause of why she's seeking this in the
Yes.
first place. And I was like, I wish it was displayed more and more healthy in that dynamic. I mean, she's cheating on her husband, but in that dynamic where they didn't look unsafe. Because for a little bit, it just looked really unsafe. And I was like,
Because it was.
yeah.
That's the one thing Baby Girl was realistic. In
Mhm.
all of the movies I've seen, I actually think Baby Girl's the most realistic for a couple of reasons. One of the criticisms I argued with the most was a lot of men specifically thought, "Are you telling me Antonio Banderas wouldn't do everything Nicole Kidman wanted?" And that is the reality of couples. He wasn't into it. He felt gross doing it. He felt disgusting. He did not understand her desire. So Nicole Kidman was not communicating with her husband efficiently. Remember, she had to go under the sheet just to talk
Mhm.
about it because she was embarrassed. She wasn't
Mhm.
owning her own desire, which, by the way, that's what you were teaching your friends in high school was to prioritize their pleasure. Like when you talk about boundaries, when you talk about the safety aspect of it, what you're really saying is, here's how to set it up for yourself so that you get to enjoy it and not have to
Mhm.
worry about problems. She wasn't able to do that, and that's how she ended up in that situation. But the idea that a man would just do whatever a woman wanted could not be farther from the truth in my experience when it comes to kink. I exist and I do my job for the Nicole Kidman, Antonio Banderas relationships in the world where they struggle to talk to each other and they need extra help because, spoiler alert, I don't know if major spoiler alert, block out, go silent for the next 10 seconds. In the end, he does accommodate her to a certain extent where she's
Mhm.
able to have something with him, and everyone would have been saved a lot of pain had they just done that 10 years earlier, you know? But then it wouldn't be a
Absolutely.
movie. It would.
Absolutely. And then, so with that, I want to jump around some questions a bit because we're flowing. Screw it.
Yeah.
We're doing our thing. With the BDSM and the intimacy style. So going back to Antonio Banderas, he would do whatever he wants to Nicole Kidman, but the reality is, that's also a complicated subject for men in those relationships too. So when we get to the relationship coaching aspect of it all and really peeling back kink culture, how do you help men approach that and feel comfortable in their sexuality to be able to not only accept her desire, but also not feel shame around their own?
Oh, that is it's I wish there was one easy answer to this, but it's highly individualistic of
Mhm.
understanding what's the hang up here. And I don't
Mhm.
call it a hang up, but that's essentially it. It's what's going on for you that you're resisting this? Is it society telling you to be a certain way? Is it something that goes against your core desires so it doesn't turn you on at all? Is that something you're willing to work through and see if you can get past the fact that it doesn't turn you on to just be a giving partner? Or is it something where we're discussing like you really can't give this to your partner? Do you want them to go outside the relationship to have it and just not bother you with this? But so much of it is just accepting who they are and their own societal expectations of themselves. And I know that sounds trite, but it's very true of one of the major things getting in the way of our own desire is what society tells us we're supposed to want and supposed to go after. And that is something I learned at the dungeon. When I was working with clients, these were men who had high six-figure salaries, seven-figure bonuses, and they would come to the dungeon and I'd find out that they were quite unhappy with their lives. And even though to my young eyes they had everything they could possibly need, the intimacy piece was missing. So because they were missing that intimacy, it was a big deal. And they were like, I wish I had done what I wanted. I wish I had married, but instead I married the person I was supposed to marry. So we have
Mhm.
people striving for perfection and not looking at who they are and what their true core desires are. I think society talks so much about wounds and how we were wronged as children, which is totally fair. The wounds we carry through life have a major impact, but we so rarely look at our core desires and what drives us and makes us happy and gives us pleasure. And it turns out to be very easy to ignore them. So I just start focusing in on, well, what is your desire and why
Mhm.
do you feel the need to hide it? Why does it feel wrong to you? And we just start exploring what they've been telling themselves, the stories they've told themselves for
Yes.
years of why they can't have what they want, why they shouldn't have what they want, and the stories they tell themselves about how their partner would never, could never. And oftentimes, the partner will. They just need the communication and the
Mhm.
understanding, you know? So I
Mhm.
think you got to start with the self acceptance. That's number one. And I think in life in general, it's hard to accept ourselves because society is really busy and hard at work, and marketing companies are putting thousands of dollars into telling you you're not enough. And if you can
Mhm.
buy the product or whatever they're selling you, you will be enough, or you can get the job and be that model citizen. You'll be perfect and life will reward you. And I think we're learning that that's not true in any aspect of our lives. We have to really focus on ourselves.
Yes, and one of the things I've been telling people, and it was the only way I could really put it, is you have to be selfish before you can give to somebody else. And even as you were just talking, the people are coming in what they're supposed to give other people. We've been so selfless that you decenter the things that you want, that you're meeting people who don't fit your core needs. But if you were selfish and she or he were selfish, and you two selfish people met each other and you're like, I like this, I like that, it would be great.
It was so much more productive, at least, because 'cause you'd be efficient in understanding, "Is this person for me or not?" Instead
Hmm.
of chasing the right person.
Hmm.
Like, it kills me how many people it was not 1, 2, 3, 10 clients, more than that were saying, "I married the person I was supposed to marry." I couldn't it was like they were handed a script before coming in to see me, and it was that thing of I didn't pay attention to what I was looking for, and I'm gonna admit 24-year-old me had very little empathy because these people had everything I wanted, money and power. 37-year-old me who has a little bit more life under my belt feels so deeply for them
Hmm.
because I could tell that they felt trapped, and now I get to work with couples on helping them feel less trapped, but I don't think I gave the love or really the empathy to those
Hmm.
clients back then because they were struggling, and that's why they were seeing a dominatrix, but they wanted to have this with their wife, they wanted to be accepted in their relationship.
It's listening to you even talk about your journey and talk about your life is so funny because I was 24 and I was like, I'm gonna be a dom. I was like, I literally had the same thought. Like, I need to make some more money. And you know what? Why not? I'm like, people out there, they have needs. I need money. We can all meet in the middle. So it is like insane, like the way that you're talking. I'm just like, that was like my mental journey. It went through other iterations. And I think I met and had conversations with the people I was supposed to in a different capacity. But one of the things that I learned, again, being young, you just say what you want to say without the empathy. You're meeting the goal, but it's kind of mean, right? So now,
Yeah.
now at 37, I focus more on really trying to get people to understand that sex and intimacy, while they live in the same house, they're not the same things. So for the listeners, can you let people know, like, what's the difference between intimacy and sex?
So for some people, they are the same thing,
Hmm.
right? And I wanna call that out because I know especially for men, sex makes them feel loved. I
Okay.
am painting, like, I've picked up a very big brush to paint everyone with, but in my experience,
Hmm.
I have noticed that men feel and maybe that's programming, but, like, I won't invalidate that they
Okay.
feel if their partner is giving them oral sex or having sex with them or desiring them sexually,
Mhm.
they feel loved and they feel like that's intimacy for them. But intimacy is quite different because it's what's helping you feel connection. And for some people, that is going to be being like being given an orgasm by their partner. But for other people, and I'm going to use myself as an example here, getting a really good spanking from a partner who knows how to put me in a role play headspace that just turns me on, even without the sex, that is intimacy to me. That connection, it's almost like that in between like that joke just between you, you know?
Mhm.
It's an inside joke with your partner that makes you feel connected and close. That innocent moment is still intimacy because it's between you 2 and it's a closeness that you're not giving to everybody else. For some people, that closeness is just sex because we have multiple types of relationships with different people.
Mhm.
But it's foreplay, it's connection, and you need to actually ask your partner what intimacy means to them. So I
Mhm.
always ask this about I ask people what sex means to them because when a partner comes in and say we don't have sex anymore, I ask them, well, what does sex mean to you? Because I want to understand how close they're getting to sex. Are they hugging? Are they like tapping each other's butt in the as they pass each other in the kitchen? All of these are acts of intimacy and
Mhm.
closeness that we hope in most scenarios, everyone's hoping this leads to sex or some sort of intimacy and excitement sexually, but not for everyone. So it is highly dependent, but I want everyone to understand that sex doesn't always have to be the goal. You can have that closeness and that connection without it. And it's about, I think if you boil it down to what makes you feel loved and seen, and
Mhm.
intimacy is that vulnerably being seen thing of who you are deep down that doesn't exist with most of our friends and family. It's the piece we keep mostly to ourselves and we let one or two other people in.
No, that was perfectly well put.
Well,
I'm gonna challenge that thinking. Have you seen Heated Rivalry?
I'm starting heated rivalry because I because I don't watch young. I've had this thing in my head that these are teenage if I can't have sex with them or wouldn't feel comfortable having sex with them, I'm not gonna indulge in the story, right? I don't know why, this was my own
Mhm.
prejudice,
Mhm.
because I think I'm just getting used to being older now, and now that
Yeah,
I'm 37, I'm like, all of the stories about
it's
are
like
about younger people. So, whether they're 28 or 22, I'm gonna watch the show. So I
mhm.
watched Off Campus, and then people were like, "Oh, you need to watch Heated Rivalry," and I was like, "Okay." God, those I'm only on episode 2, but the sex scenes in episode 1 alone, when sorry, can I just tell you, when
Yes.
he says you don't have to or you don't have to do that, meaning swallow, and the guy's
Mhm.
basically like, I think he says like, "I like it," or "I want to." I was like,
Mhm.
"Why is this not in any other show? Why does it have to be between 2 men?" Like, we never I honestly think it's because if a woman said, "No, I like it," she'd be labeled a slut, and that would not be sellable on television, but that's a different conversation. Anyway,
Mhm.
I am Heated Rivalry is the show I'm watching right now. So anyway, please continue. You can give me
No,
spoilers.
no,
I'm
I
obsessed.
won't. I won't give you spoilers, but it's just really it goes back to like the act of intimacy and how it's displayed on TV, and then also bringing up the gender roles too. Because I look at Heated Rivalry and I see what it is, and they really take it there, right? And they take it where they take it there in like a very condensed aspect
Yes.
of it all, but over the course of the 6 episodes, it's kind of starts off as like the physical is the intimate thing. And when it's not happening, there's hurt. Then the desire, what do I actually want from that person and how do they make me feel come in later. And then when I think of shows like The L Word, it was almost similar too with same-sex women couples. We're doing the thing so that we can, make sure people want to watch the women naked on screen, but that intimacy was there. So why do you think there's a struggle sometimes when it's heteronormative relationships and portraying that same thing on TV or in film?
I really do think that there is a I know we hate the word patriarchy. I learned that on my own podcast that like every time I say it, people come, they rail at me. But the truth is, I think that we are still holding women to a standard and painting them how they can only be a certain type of way. I mean, look at sitcoms. If I see another fat man, beautiful young woman pairing on a sitcom, I think I might scream because that is the idea that a man can look anyway, but a woman has to look perfect. This sexual side of it is just an extension of that. A man can come in someone's mouth, but the person whose mouth he comes in is actually less than if they let him
Mhm,
do it. Women are
mhm,
expected to uphold standards that men are not burdened with. So I think in TV shows, the woman still has to look and act a certain way in order to be respected, or else society is going to judge her. And I'm not saying that's not true in real life as well. I think there was recently a study done of they showed people a messy room and they told some people it was a man's room and others it was a woman. And the way the person was judged and how the room was judged was different depending on the man or a woman. And I think that's what we're seeing on TV as well, where you can't be the loose, fun sex girl and be the main character because
mm,
only a virginal high standards, high boundaries, virgin deserves to be the main character and to be cared about in the way a main character is. I'm hoping season 2 of Off Campus changes that and that
Mm-hmm.
it can be more sex forward, and I think it is going to do that. But I've noticed that in TV in general, the woman has to be almost virginal still. Even Sex and the City, a very forward show, Samantha could never have been the main character because she was too sex positive. And
You have a
it
point.
took years for Cynthia Nixon to be allowed to be, well, I know she auditioned to be a straight
Mm-hmm.
woman, but to be allowed to be a lesbian or bisexual, whatever they landed on her being. It took years for that. And I just think that TV is going to take a long time to catch up. And I hate that in 2026 we're still facing the same things. Because now I'm comparing Off Campus with Heated Rivalry, two shows that are about hockey and a young relationship that is very like there's high tension, but the way it plays out is very different. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that Off Campus just played it so safe so that people could fall in love with the characters. Whereas Heated Rivalry, it was almost like, yeah, everyone's going to fall in love with them because they're held to a different standard.
Mm-hmm.
I've never talked about that aspect of sex in general. So thank you for giving me that question and that opportunity to share something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
No, you're welcome. And it's so interesting because I just remember growing up, I think like the Spike Lee film, She's Gotta Have It. It just had such an impact on me because there's this black woman and she's just like, you don't meet my need, okay, bye, next. You don't meet my need, okay, bye, next. I got this guy, I got that guy, that guy. And it was just like, wow, we have the option, we have the choice to say what we want and to say what we need and to say whether it feels good or it doesn't feel good or this is wrong or I don't like this. And I just feel like it takes so long to keep coming back to a character or a movie or a TV show, especially with the woman owning it and being the lead, like you said, and saying we're going to still love her even though she's dictating the space. So like for you and as you're still watching, like what would be something that you would tell a director or even like another like intimacy coach or even a writer if they're coming to you like, hey, I want to write this style? What would you tell them? What risk would you tell them to take and what things would you tell them to leave out?
I would ask them to take the risk to slow it down and show how slow it can actually be, because you know what you just described with Heated Rivalry, they were right in it. There's no middle ground here. You're either in the sex or it's 10 episodes before sex happens, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no middle ground that we're experiencing, and that's what kink and BDSM actually is. It's getting to know each other. It's building tension, but it's a tension that's not fully understood or seen because the action isn't happening. And oftentimes in kink and BDSM, the payoff isn't going to be worth slowing it down for most people. And I think that's why directors and uh, I think media in general speeds it up unless it's a book. It's because in order to keep people's attention, you either build out really long tension so that all they're gagging for the scene. But a
Mm-hmm.
BDSM scene, if you're not into BDSM, it's not going to deliver the same audience feeling of understanding. We can't empathize with characters if we're not into that kink. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking for an example for me would probably be cuckolding. I am not into cuckolding, so I'm not sure how I would engage with that. But I think if a director, a writer, an intimacy coordinator put the time into stretching it out long enough for me to understand the mechanics that led up to it, I think that would be fascinating and really brave, and I would want to see more people doing that. But also to your point, and I try not to make black and white comparisons, but I am trying to think what would be a white lead actress equivalent to She's Gotta Have It, where it was a white woman going through that and being a main character. And right now I'm drawing a blank. So now I'm also thinking, is there something where we hold I'm gonna say it even though I is there something where we're holding white women to even a more virginal status where like, oh, they have to be a certain type of way? And I don't know. I'm literally gonna go look through movies, rom-coms, 80s, 90s, early 2000s to see, because I can't think of a movie where we held up a woman and said, she's gonna have it her way, and we're not going to hate her. We're actually going to celebrate her. And she's main character. Can
Yeah,
you
I'm trying
think
to
of any
think,
movies?
but honestly, first off, shout out to Blanche Devereaux, love her. Um,
Yes! Yes!
Blanche
You're
is
actually right. But she was slut like the way she was called a slut
yeah,
so
yeah.
much by characters I also loved,
Hmm.
but at least she kept doing her thing. She
She,
showed you how to be yourself.
she would, when she would come out of her room because she needed some whipped cream, and everybody would look at her and she'd be like, all right, let me go to my room and let me go get it. And she never hid from it. And then some of the deeper conversations, like the episode with where there was an AIDS scare with Rose, and Rose was like, people like you should get it, and she's like, it's not a person who has more sex is prone to this, or that they should be disrespected or slut shamed because they love sex. That's not how this works. And so I love, like, even through her character, with the jokes, they still found time for her to teach a lesson about the
You're so right.
boundaries and the respect. And I'm trying to think of other people, but I watched that show so much to this day that I can't think of anybody else. But she absolutely was like killing it at a time where you would think it would have been more regressed. It feels more
Wait,
regressive.
but there were a lot of things that that show addressed that no one, even just how husbands treated wives at the time, and
Hmm.
there was that show addressed so much. But once again, it's an ensemble cast. Same with
Hmm.
Sex in the City,
Hmm.
where no one the lead character doesn't get to be that person. Even I'm thinking, do you know what show I really liked? It was called Younger, and it was about a woman who was 46 pretending to be 20 something to get an intern job. And her best friend was highly sexual, and I think she was bisexual, and I mean extremely sexual, and tried a bunch of different things. And her mother in the show was a sex therapist, so she was just very, but again, she's brought in as comic relief as opposed to being, and that's what Blanche was. It was comic relief
Hmm.
as opposed to owning it. Samantha at least had more of a backbone, Samantha in
Yeah.
Sex in the City. And this is just a conversation on on sex in general because I mean, we could talk BDSM and TV shows. Like, have you ever seen Billions?
Mm-mm.
Billions is a show, and this is such a side plot thing, subplot thing. One of the main characters is submissive, and his wife is a therapist, and she doms him, and she took time to learn how to be a dominant. And I loved that portrayal of it because it was like, that's real life. Sometimes you just do something for the person you love.
Hmm.
However, it was that very exaggerated. She dressed from head to toe in latex, and I am going to tell you, getting into latex is fucking painful. I mean, it takes so much time. I think I have a sensory issue around it where I feel gross. You are wet, you sweat into it, and it doesn't like bleed out. It's the most disgusting feeling in the world. So I just don't believe a lot of people are going full latex to do this for their husband. Sometimes they
Hmm.
are. Of course they are. My point is, it's not always like that. So I guess those are all of my points on that. Thank you for letting me wax poetic on all of it.
Oh, I mean, I can talk about this all day. You can talk about this all day. But going back to the BDSM aspect, so for people, even now they're still hearing it. They may be hearing us say these letters and they're like still kind of
Yeah.
jumping at it. What are some things within that relationship that actually does translate to what people consider their normal relationships that they could handle for themselves?
Ooh,
What can
that's
they
a
take
really
away from that?
yes. Okay. So I think in order to even get to that place, I want everyone to understand this is not abuse. And I go on a lot of podcasts. So I've been talking to a lot of non sex positive podcasts who I'm teaching about this, and they're asking very blunt questions about, well, violence and psychological harm and things like that. And I love that they ask me because it reminds me, oh, some people think of BDSM as a very aggressive, um, sadistic act that could really mess people's heads up. And I don't disagree with that. But when we talk about these things, we are doing it under like the understanding that there is a lot of negotiating. And through that negotiation, you consent to certain things, and that consent can be withdrawn at any time. So I want people to understand that alone in relationships is important. Just because you have sex with your partner once doesn't mean you have a blanket yes to have sex with them whenever they want. You can't wake them up at 3 a.m. and say, like, well, you said yes last night and we did it, so shouldn't you be saying yes now? I think that's
Mhm.
one aspect of kink and BDSM that's important. But let's talk about the letters BDSM. I know they are super confusing because the letters mean multiple different things. B stands for bondage. That D stands for both discipline and dominance. And then the S stands for submission. So that goes with the DS, dominance, submission. But the S also stands for sadism, that goes with the M, masochism. So we have one acronym that means many different things. And I understand that can seem very intense, but I want you to also think about, what do you enjoy in the bedroom? Sometimes we like feeling our arms pinned down. We like to feel held or safe. And that's a form of bondage, to have your arms pinned down. It's just, it's not like ropes and chains holding you
Mm-hmm.
down. So I think every piece of that, of BDSM and of kink, it's on a spectrum. And there's a beginner version of it and there's an extreme version of it. And I'd challenge you to think, are you enjoying certain types of role plays? Are you enjoying certain types of risque behavior? I was recently on a podcast where someone shared that she wasn't kinky at all, but then proceeded to tell me of all these kinky things that she created for her and her partner to do. Like, she would dress up in lingerie or not wear any lingerie out and then expose herself to him in public. And I'm like, oh, that's quite a kinky thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we need to realize a lot of these risque, more fun aspects of sex that we're exploring are actually kink. You just want to make sure you're doing it in a consensual way. Does that answer your question? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because you mentioned the word that I think a lot of people need to understand is the spectrum, right? It
Yeah.
Everything has a level to it. I know
Yeah.
earlier you mentioned like you don't like cuckolding, but I know a lot of people who may say, I don't like cuckolding or I'm not like a voyeur. But then when they talk about what they see, even if they watch a TV show or a movie, you're getting turned on by it. It's causing like an arousal or a response in you.
Yes.
So while you may not go and like get people and sit in the chair and be like, do the thing, you enjoy hearing people in the next room, or you
Yes.
know you're everybody's at a hotel together, and you're waking up to people kissing and moaning, and you're just like, okay. And it's like, it doesn't have to be this big extreme thing, but there's
No.
something in you that likes it, and it doesn't have to go to peeping tom or anything like that. It's just simply, that's a thing you enjoy, and how do you put it in your life to meet that need?
Oh, and for me, the answer is quite extreme. I'll go to a sex party and watch. I won't have sex, but just earlier this year, I was on a kinky cruise, a swingers cruise, actually, that had like a kinky element to it. And you better believe that I dragged my boyfriend to the sex room. I was like, no, I want to see. And for him, he really wasn't that into seeing it. He truly was just like, I don't need to see other people having sex. He was like, it's actually not a very sexual, like sexy looking thing, just watching people going at it. But to me, it is. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I include it. I will go to parties and watch, even though I won't partake myself in public sex
Mm-hmm.
because I'm definitely a voyeur. But yeah, certain people can just even, if you can run the fantasy in bed and dirty talk about it, like, oh, I want to go have sex with you in a room full of people, and just talk about it and fantasize it and experience it that way without ever exposing yourself in any type of way in real life.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely. It's just all about the creativity. That's why I tell people all the time, like, read fictional books. People like to, they only kink shame sex books, and it's like, read it. You'll never know what you like if you don't know what you react to mentally. How do you absorb these characters? How do you absorb the words? And then how can you then like self insert in a way where, like you just said, you don't have to go do it, but you can put yourself in a state where you can imagine it to a point of, I actually don't like this, or I really like this. Like, I was reading books when I realized you're not spitting on me. It's germy. The mouth is dirty. I'm not doing it. I'm like,
I
not doing that. Shout out to everybody that does it. And people are like, well, kissing. I'm like, you're not, I'm not doing that.
No, that's totally fair. And I would have said the same thing, except when I worked as a dominatrix and someone asked for it and I spit in their mouth. Well, not that it's actually illegal to exchange fluids, but I think we're past that point. Anyway, I actually learned there were certain things that I love to do that I never knew I would enjoy. And that's one of them. But I agree with you on reading different books. I remember when I was a teenager, well, in college, I would read male lover books, like
Mhm,
erotic romances between two men. And actually, now that I think about it, the thing I liked was it was much more aggressive and fast paced compared to the
mhm,
ones where it was like a man and a woman, which were still traditionally written like a slower moving thing.
Hmm.
So I think that you exposing yourself to different things is helpful in understanding what you do and don't like, and it doesn't say anything about you. If you're a man and you pick up a romance novel about two men, it doesn't make you gay. It just makes you curious and interested in learning more.
Absolutely. And I mean, same as you, I like the male and male books to not just because of the aggression, but I like the aggression and the softness existing in the same
Mm,
space together.
yeah.
Like there's the emotion that society doesn't allow men to do that's written in those books that exist with the maleness. It exists with the facial hair, the chest hair, the body hair, the muscles or lack of muscles. And there's still such a softness because it's about the intimacy that you create and the desires for yourself and the other person, the trust in those boundaries. And anybody can experience that.
Yes,
That
that's
that's really
such a good
freeing.
point.
Yeah.
That intimacy, which seeing it that still exists in that masculine space and at the same time, yeah, that is something that is compartmentalized in a lot of male-female books, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like he can be masculine, but then he shows up with her and he's just tender, and it's not both at the same time. And I'd never actually thought about it like that, but yeah, that is an extremely appealing thing.
It's my favorite part about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you get. I think you get more. I don't know, especially as a woman. I think I find I can empathize more with what
Yeah.
men may not, what they may be afraid to say, but it's written in books, and so it's a thing that they feel. They just haven't said it, and so it
I
allows
know.
me to have that grace and empathy for when I do meet people and they're like, "Ooh, I'm not going to do that," and it's like, well, why? What made you say no?
Yeah, I love asking that question. And just a side point that I'm reminded of, romance novels in the 90s, when I think that they were 90s, yeah, when they were really surging, about 1% of the readers of romance novels were incarcerated. And it wasn't women, it was men. So, like,
Mhm.
I think men enjoy this tenderness and affectionate intimacy, and they need it just as much. It's just not talked about. So, whether it's male, 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 female, whatever it is, the intimacy, it's sad, it's almost withheld from them. It's sort of like women are supposed to not be leaders and be strong, or else they might be bitches. They're not supposed to be bossy, but men are
Mhm.
not supposed to be soft and show any type of feeling or emotion. So we were all raised to hide certain parts of ourselves that it's now very exciting to see when it comes out. Same with it when I see a boss bitch
Yeah.
woman, I'm like, "Yes." Like, when I was at Starbucks one day, and the woman handed me my coffee, and she said, "Here you go, boss." And the lack of people ever calling me boss in my life, but I hear men call each other boss all the time, and I'm like, "I wanna take this." So I think men being vulnerable, it's sort of that same thing as a woman getting called boss by just being handed her a coffee at Starbucks,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes, everybody deserves a little praise, and then you find out you have a praise
Yes.
kink, and you see all is well.
Oh, okay, here's the thing. Do we not all have a praise kink? Is this just I'm convinced everyone.
I think everybody does. Otherwise, we wouldn't get so upset when nobody doesn't recognize our efforts. Like
I know.
it's on the spectrum.
But it must be like the entry level kink that everybody has, because I'm gonna put this to my social media followers. I'm gonna ask, like, do you have a praise kink? And then for everyone who says no, I'm gonna have follow-up questions, because I'm convinced it all, it's like those flow charts that all lead to the same answer.
No, why?
Yeah. And then it's like, what's the most recent one? I saw like an engagement ring, and it was sort of like, do you have money for one? And if the answer is no, it's like, get a job. And then it like, it auto forces you to yes, then, because you get money for an engagement ring. But yeah, that same thing. I really think the praise kink is universal.
Absolutely. And then speaking of universal things too, just bringing up just kink, BDSM, all of it, intimacy, everything is about boundaries. Like we cannot
Yeah.
even go into this without establishing and acknowledging boundaries. Why do you think so many people see it as a limitation versus the thing that can take the relationship and the intimacy to the next level?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go back to childhood again. You were being good if you could stay quiet while your boundaries were being trampled all over. So I think that boundaries have been thought of as the anti-good. You're actually being difficult. You are being a burden. You are being inconsiderate and inconvenient if you have boundaries. And I think about that in my own childhood, like my mom getting annoyed at stupid stuff that, like, if I were a mother, I would also be getting annoyed. But you know what? It teaches you, oh, let your grandma kiss you on the cheek even if you don't want that, because to not would be rude. Okay. So
So many
then
grandmas are
bound
getting mad right now.
yeah, I know my mom would be pissed too. And it's just like, yeah, well, it's like we want people to have autonomy, but only when we decide they can and at an age that they deserve it or something like that. So here's the thing with boundaries. We don't get to view them. We unfortunately don't view them as a boundary is really saying, like, I love and respect you in my life so much. I want you to stay in my life. In order for that to feel comfortable for me, I need you to honor this request, basically. It is a request because a boundary is saying, please stay in my life. Please care about me enough to listen to what I need and desire and honor that. And I will give you the same respect. Boundaries are not actually talked about that way, though. Boundaries are seen as a place you can't go. We now see it as a almost land that needs to be taken over, as opposed to this boundary of like, oh, that's their property. I'm going to respect it and I'll stand at the fence and talk to them. We do not see it like that. We're like, oh, it's all or nothing. If you're not letting me be on your property and all up in your business, you don't love me. And I think that that's how we've corrupted boundaries so that
Mhm.
it's no longer seen as the, oh, I love you. I'm going to share this important piece of me, this thing that I need from you to either not hurt or touch so that we can stay close together and keep moving forward. And we only see it as a limitation when it's quite the opposite. It's the
Mhm.
catapult of like, go with me on this journey. Like, just appreciate this. And I think we can do lots of great things together.
Absolutely. And you just brought up such a good thing because I remember talking to my wife about this too. Like, I mean, we have so many conversations. And that was one of the things that we talked about is like when you were a kid, you got rewarded for silence. You got rewarded for shrinking yourself for other people's greatness. And especially with women, and you grow up and it's like, you can't have a boyfriend until you're 25. Then you're 25 and they're like, why don't you have kids? And it's like, how do you want sex to happen? How do you want these things to happen when as I was growing, what I was taught through watching you and listening to you and you threatening to punish me for exploring myself and my own sexual thoughts, you said it was a hard no. So what's something, sorry parents, what's something you would say to parents to maybe help bridge a healthier relationship as it comes to consent, boundaries, sex, intimacy?
Oh, I would start with the friendships and talking about healthy relationships with friends and feeling where boundaries are being crossed and how people feel after they've like ask your children how they felt after a play date. Like ask your children to check in with themselves to see how they're feeling about an experience so they can start building that muscle. And I do this with adults too. I tell them after the grocery store, after a haircut, any sort of silly, inconsequential meeting, or you go to a cafe, when you leave that place, I want you to check in and scan your body and think about the interactions you had with people. How did you feel? Do you feel good, positive? Do you feel stupid? Do you feel that they brushed you off? Check in with yourself. Know how you're feeling. And then that is going to help you whether you're in a relationship with a man or a woman or it's like romantic, friendship, boss, employee. Understand how that person is making you feel and the way they're leaving you. Have you ever heard of an emotional vampire? Someone who you hang out with and they make you feel
Yes.
drained?
Hmm.
We should be teaching kids about that instead of staying quiet and putting up with the sad sack who makes you feel drained at the end of it. I mean, be there with your that's actually the point. You talk to kids about that. You ask them, "Well, is this a friend that you care about? Do you wanna be with them so that until they feel better, or is this a pattern with them that they're always sort of just dumping information on you?" So I would teach it in friendship before so that they know in romantic life. I want everyone holding a standard for the people they have in their lives, whether that's family, friends, relationships, like, let's have a understood standard so that it can be applied to everyone. Because, yeah, to your point, I remember when I was a kid, my dad forced me to play the piano, which I'm very grateful for, but I obviously also wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend. And let me tell you, in adulthood, how many times did he ask me to play the piano? Zero. How many times did he ask me when I was getting married? Like 40. So it's that thing of care about you're still raise the adult. Like, raise the person to be the adult version you want to see, not the perfect child that looks good on paper and makes you look like a good parent.
Hmm.
I have no children though. So I just was lucky enough to have the most amazing mom who taught me no one should ever touch me without me wanting it. And then I probably wasn't going to be old enough to know until I was 16 or 17 if I wanted that kind of touch. And she was just very she never held my virginity as this gold standard. It wasn't this
Hmm.
thing to be protected. It was just this thing that I probably wouldn't be ready to part with until I was 16 or 17. So she definitely put an age
Yeah.
barrier on it, but it was much more realistic than 25 or 30, any number my dad would have given, you know?
Yeah, I was young. It was like a trial by fear type of thing. But I was like 6 when my mom gave me like the 6-year-old's version of a sex talk, and it was about these are no spots, these are yes spots,
Oh.
scream, kick. These are things that don't happen. And then when I asked where do babies come from, it was okay. So men and women they love each other, and you do this thing when you're ready. Don't ever feel pressured. So there was like these little incremental moments where my mind, in the capacity of which I could understand while being an inquisitive child, it was just like, oh, okay, so don't do this, but that thing also produces babies. Okay, but some people do this to hurt you. So I need to make sure that I'm not hurt. And I think that kind of started my fascination, even just being a young teenager and just kind of going through and just being like, well, why do people want it to hurt? Why don't people want it to hurt? And that's really what started me seeking out like BDSM books and like Zane and all the things that you were sneaking and reading in high school that you should have been reading. But it was just like, so you can be a lawyer, but then like go do like all these things. Or you can be like a senator and go do all these things. But you're not taught that. You're taught that it looks this way and that person is like a slut or a whore or whatever. But it's like I'm reading these books and they have suits, they're librarians, they're teachers, they're all these other things, and they have such full lives. And I'm like super grateful for my mom for even starting it off on, if you are this age and it is happening, this is wrong, but there is something beautiful that can happen. And then I just kind of kept digging in the beauty of it so that I can
Yes.
understand if it felt wrong. Like you just said, how do I feel in this interaction? I knew when it felt wrong because I knew when it felt good to me to read it and to consume it. Yeah.
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 And
A lot of points.
also, so you were a curious child, but to me, it sounded like your mother was also not one to shy away from answers. Like you asked a question and she had an answer
Hmm.
of some type that was age appropriate. And I think that's really important too. It doesn't sound like she ever brushed off your questions.
No, and I have so many siblings, and so
Wow.
when their time came, and they're like, "What's this thing?" I have so many brothers, and one of them was like, "What's this coming out of me?" And I was like, "Okay,
Oh my gosh.
well." And I was like, "Well, what was happening
Uh,
before this?" He's gonna kill me if he sees this. But I was just like, "What was happening before this moment?" And he was, "Oh, girls going wild on." I said, okay, all right. So let's chat."
that's fascinating. Also, what a good question. I really feel you should just go become a sex and relationship coach. You have what I call the high school credentials of being the expert in high school, which is actually a big deal because, well, when I was in high school, my mom was divorced by then, and she'd ask me for advice. Definitely by the time I was in college, she would ask me
Mhm.
relationship advice because there are some people, and I think it requires no judgment and curiosity. And I think that's probably why your brother chose to talk to you about it. He felt there was going to be no judgment, and you just led with curiosity of like, well, what was happening before this? I couldn't think of a better question to ask before diving into answering his question.
It was definitely an
Smart.
interesting time. It was an interesting time. Younger siblings, they shape you because my siblings have asked, I'm like, hey, and it's like, somebody wants to do this to me. What does this mean? And I'm like, okay. And let me take off my sister
That's
hat. Let me take off my sister hat. Let me put on like the advice hat. And it's like, all right. And then afterwards, I'm like, man, they're growing up.
and but don't we all grow up so fast? Like, that period of time is insane from, like, whatever age you learn to maybe your first sexual experience, what you just have to learn so much and take on so much information that it's good your siblings had you, it's good your mom was open-minded. Did you have moments where you were like, "Okay, I know all this stuff, but it's not working for me," or it's not feeling like it still felt confusing?
I think it was what helped me kind of go through what I felt like stuck and what didn't. Is because I write and I would write so many poems and short stories and stuff as a kid. And so I would read and I would consume, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm reacting to this thing. Because I didn't have my first sexual experience till I was 18. But I have a very active imagination because I was just a voracious reader. And so then I would write and see what does my mind naturally gravitate toward. And that's kind of how I started
Yeah.
figuring out what I would like in a partner or what I would like in a sexual or intimate situation. I would just
Yes.
let my mind do it. And there's certain things that I'll read and I'll see and I love it. And I'm like, that was fantastic. I wouldn't do it. But I love that it's there for other people. But writing helped
1,000%.
me. Writing helped me figure it out a lot of stuff.
That's amazing. I don't know if I often wonder if I hadn't been sitting in that watching that TV show that taught me about kink and
Mhm.
dominatrixes, how long it would have taken or how I would have figured out what I wanted or desired because of the fetish aspect of it, of just being obsessed with spanking and punishment. I think it would have taken me a long time. And I actually had, when I was a dominatrix, I worked with a lot of people who were deeply, deeply religious. I mean,
Mhm.
the Hasidic Jewish community was like, Orthodox Jewish people were a large portion of regular clients, and they just had no other idea of how to have this need met, and they had these thoughts and curiosities, but most of them as adults didn't even have smartphones to find it, so I don't know how they found the dungeon in the first place, but I often wonder, like, how does everyone come to understand who they are without the help of the internet? Because it took TV for me to fully understand, and I don't know,
Yeah.
but I think that your example is perfect because it was through your own writing that you figured it out, and maybe reading some other books,
Mhm.
but you figured it out for yourself in a way that I think a lot of times now TV, porn, and, the internet steps in, for better or worse, you know?
Yeah. And we're both born in the 1900s, as the kids say. Did you watch
Yeah.
that lady on TV at night? I cannot think of her name. The older lady.
I don't know if this she had a show. Dr. Ruth was this old lady who did a TV show, but
I
no,
think I
I
think it's
don't know
her.
this older lady. So she only died 2 years ago, but she was this old tiny Jewish lady who
Yes.
was
Yes.
yes.
We talk about like
She
people call in like their sex questions.
yes,
I
yes, she
watched that.
was my grandma would put that on. I want to be the Dr. Ruth of kink because I want what I loved about Dr. Ruth was she had her halo people just watching it because they were curious. But then she had the people in the 90s. I actually talk about this sometimes. Do you know, like in the 60s, a blowjob was considered kinky because not everyone was giving blowjobs, and that was this.
Mhm.
And now high school students view it as the precursor to sex, right?
Yeah.
In the 90s, blowjobs were still not a super common thing. So she had all the people tuning in because they were interested. But then she had the core group of people who needed to hear it was okay to give a blowjob or that it was okay to ask for a blowjob. And those people needed her, and everyone else was curious. And by then, everyone needed her because it needed to be normalized. I want to do
Mhm.
that for kink. It's like I have a lot of followers on social media who are just curious about kink, but I want to be there to answer questions for the people who need to hear it's okay that you want to be spanked. It's okay that you want to be tied up. It is okay to want the things that people say is not normal, as long as this is my big rule. It needs to be consensual
Mhm.
between adults and
Mhm.
legal where you are. And I say that because I don't want you to be in some foreign country where it's illegal to go to a dungeon and then you're caught in a dungeon. Please be safe. But you can do that by making sure it's consensual and between adults. And in order for it to be consensual, you need to have negotiated it. You need to have talked about it clearly. Otherwise, it's not consensual. No one actually said yes to this specific act without the negotiation piece of it.
I'm
Yeah.
actually so glad you brought that up because one of my questions was people really understanding that consent goes beyond just yes or no. Like you just
Yeah.
said, it's negotiation. I said yes, but what are my boundaries within this yes? I said
Yeah.
no, but here's where I can do around the thing, but you won't do that thing. And
Yes.
we
And
just don't take it that far.
we don't. But you know what? I'm going to give you a link to my free BDSM list because for anyone who thinks they're curious about exploring this, I've created a list and there are like 300 items on it, but it's all subcategories. So if you know you're not into role play, you don't have to look at that section at all. In there, I have you done it before? Yes, no, no, but curious about it. And
Hmm.
then also it lays out of like, what was your interest level? How much did you enjoy it? What's your, like, is it a hard no, absolutely never, or soft no, kind of like, I'd be open to talking about it if it's important to you. And going through a list like that can be super helpful to understand your boundaries and understand where your partner's at because if they say hard no, then you know this is never happening. And if it's important for you, you need to know you're in a relationship with someone who it's never going to happen with because you need to respect their hard no. And that's the thing, you got to err on the side of the person with the boundaries saying no, that's the person you respect. That's you can't force it, you can't coerce people. That's just wrong by every definition.
Absolutely. So, what's one of the biggest takeaways for people listening and they made it this far? What's
Yeah.
one of the biggest takeaways that you hope they walk away with, not only just in their lives, but even as they continue to consume media surrounding the topic? What do you want them to always like keep with them?
I want them to keep in mind that this is just television portraying it, but if the themes of what they're watching excite them, I would highly encourage go Google it, look it up, find out what type of play it is, what type of scene is it that someone's being tied up and that sounds exciting to you? Is it that someone's taking charge and being really sexy and that's exciting to you? Whatever it is, I want you to pay attention to that very closely and think, okay, let me see how I can explore this a little bit more. You know, don't shy away from it. Don't just discredit it because it's on TV. This could be something that really opens up your intimacy and excitement in the bedroom. It could be a missing piece. And I want you to explore it, at least reading about it. Then, if you're at a place where you wanna bring it up to your partner, I'm also going to if you don't mind putting in your show notes, I have a free guide called Speaking Your Desires with Confidence, where you and your partner can sit down and do a worksheet together to start talking about your fantasies and desires and how you can start incorporating them in a beginner-friendly way, so you can start to explore if this is actually something you both wanna try. So I'm gonna give you links to 2 freebies so that people can start exploring this on their own. But yes, as you're watching it, don't shy away from something if it excites you. I'd also say the same as if it completely disgusts you, don't shy away from it. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What's coming up for
Mhm.
me?
Well, it's absolutely going in the show notes. I feel like even if people may vocally say, I'm not going to do that, I think in the quiet, we all still go and search and look anyway. So it's
Yes.
okay. You can do it in the dark. You can wait until 1 a.m. and
I-
scroll. Nobody's
Incognito
like,
window, like Google incognito window, open up some
yeah.
like browser that does not track your history and like just look into it. But there's nothing, I think that's the thing. It's not embarrassing. It's just, it might be considered taboo, you know? And you have to realize that's like a societal construct that you probably shouldn't have to worry about as long as it's consensual between adults and legal where you are, you're good to go. And I want people to really internalize that for their own exploration.
Well, thank you. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you have going on? Where can the people find you?
I would those freebies, please check them out. But also if you want to find me, my Instagram is _Kink Consultant and my website is amandadames.com. And you can find more education on if you want to explore kink, whatever you want to do, you can find it at amandadames.com. Oh, and if it's okay, my own podcast. If you want to explore kinks and you think you are interested in any specific kink, check out the Kink Consultant podcast, where I invite different people who are living kinky lives and I ask them the questions of what their life really looks like. So if you want to know the real version of what you see in movies, check out the Kink Consultant podcast.
Absolutely. There y'all have it. Amanda, thank you. So I'm
Thank
going to
you.
clap. There's no audience here, but I'm clapping.
No, I loved being on this show. You are an amazing host. I had so much fun, and this was just whenever I get to talk about the fun sides of BDSM and kink, like today where we're talking about it in movies and TV shows, I'm having a good day. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.